that close?
Listen to that.
I mean,
It's like butter on a piece of French toast.
this is something serious.
Do you like this studio?
I
Do you feel vibe?
I can see why Oprah became Oprah. Like, if I had had this at 16, I might have gone into journalism. I don't know.
Do you want to just stay here and be my co-host? Screw you, A. Just stay here and just be my co-host, because I'm telling you what, if you would see what I'm looking at, the light, the hot pink light is like shining down upon you like the heavens.
I am feeling my whole self right now. Like, I don't even know what's happening.
It was the universe saying you guys need to meet. Ukeme Awakessien Jeter.
All right.
Oh yeah. Welcome to the Carrie Croft Show.
Thank you for having me.
I just nailed that name.
You did some work, didn't you?
I did nail it.
Yeah.
Right?
Listen.
And I am going to say this on record for other people who may interview you in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Do the work. Go find an interview where you say your name and then listen to it like 264 times like I did. So that you're not saying like, you have to sit and watch somebody botch your name. Because I would punch somebody and leave.
You know, when you've dealt with this your whole life, like literally, because we were expats, you know, in Nigeria, it's not a problem. People know how to say it. But when I was 6 years old, my dad was in oil and gas, and he was in an assignment in the Middle East. And so I was in this international school, and that's the first time that my name had ever been botched in my life. And it was jarring as a 6-year-old. And over time, because I've always kind of been in like an immigrant or expat in different communities, it's always been the case. And I've always thought to myself, why can't you just pull me aside, ask me what it is, and then say it, like, think every day, start of school, everything. Now at least there's like, I feel like I have the pronunciation tool on LinkedIn on, and I have it there on LinkedIn, so people have that. I've had some email signatures where I put it. Sometimes I write it phonetically. So there's better tools now, and people still botch it. Even
Because
with
we're
the
American.
tools.
America is the country. Like, everybody come to me. I'm American. But let's first talk about me apologizing for my looks.
First of
So
all,
look, well,
I
first of
don't
all,
like people apologizing.
Here's
for
why.
anything.
But I actually just want to tell the story.
Okay, tell
because
the
it's
story.
actually funny.
Okay.
So normally I take a shower, put makeup on, and actually look somewhat decent when I do a recording, right? Well, I'm sleep training my 5-month-old. And I have a nanny at home right now and a nanny in training because my nanny's going out for surgery.
Oh, gosh.
So I forgot to take my makeup and everything out of the room where she is. And I stood at the door, literally with this self-talk, and I'm like, self, you walk in there to get your MAC powder and your bronzer and shit. Like, you go in there and she cries, holy hell's gonna break loose because you're sleep training her, everyone's got their marching orders. So I literally didn't shower, didn't do my makeup, and just put the hat on and just left. I'm like, let's do this. I do have the MAC lip gloss though, so now we're good.
A 5-month-old has this kind of power.
Oh, hell yes. The sleep training, are you kidding me? The sleep training.
I remember those days.
My
though.
God.
And you couldn't come up with any ninja move.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
So that's
they
what
wake
this
up. They
is.
wake up at the sound of. Oh,
That's
my
what
goodness.
this is. But man,
Well,
I mean, you're like, I just want to drink you in.
Thank you.
It's unbelievable.
I always try to show up as my best self when I can.
I can't imagine you aren't your best self a lot. I mean, and I get it. You probably have days where you're like, damn, I'm not feeling, but you got the smile, the zhuzh, the energy. Now I did in my research, Nigeria. Okay, it's in Western Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a vibe where it says the Nigerian people are very, very welcoming and they're very encouraging and they have this spirit that's infectious. And you know, we can generalize, but you're hitting on all of those dials for me.
Well, listen,
it's a cultural thing too, right?
Yes, it's like we hype people and we love to be hyped up. It's just an energy.
I love this, and I love the energy.
Yeah.
So being an immigrant, right? So you're a triple minority. You're a triple threat. But it's interesting because and I want to know all about this. So growing up in Nigeria and us Americans thinking everything's all about us, you were living a whole entire life in Africa, not worrying about what was going on over here. Yeah. What did it look like? So in my head, I'm like, what do the neighborhoods look like? And how do you guys celebrate? Can you create some imagery for people at home, like how you grew up?
Yeah. I mean, like every like every country in the world, there's socioeconomic variance in how you grow up. And in Nigeria, you see those disparities widely. I feel like as a kid, I quickly knew social injustices in the sense of economic injustices. So you'll see the very, very, very poor, right? Juxtaposed, and I'm not talking like driving to a different community. I'm talking like 2 houses down, seeing a mansion, right? So you'd be on the street and you'd see both kind of living. And sometimes that was very jarring as a kid. But I think it quickly made me realize that we need to do better when we see those situations as neighbors. So if there's a slight that I have about Nigeria, it's that, right? I feel like at least in America, they find neighborhoods for them. They do social programming for them. Not that it's the best, right? But there is some discussion about it. In Nigeria, it's just dark, right? So there's that. But we were relatively middle class, grew up in a large family, 7 kids, blended family. My mom was married before my dad had 2 kids, and then her and my dad had 5, so we were 7. So large house, varied activities. At some point, my parents were very strict, and they're like, you pick one goddamn activity. Like, they were not driving to everything, right? Because I used to do track and swim, and it was like one thing. So I ended up on track.
They would not be about this pay to play where the parents are traveling to, every city in the country right now, paying out the ass for these kids. That's a whole nother episode. What is going on around here?
They are like, what is happening? I mean, my kids are in so many things. My mom, sometimes when she's visiting, she's like, what is this? This is nonsense. But, we had a variety we traveled a lot as a kid, just my dad's job. So that exposure, and that was something that was very big with my parents. They had 2 things. Education was very big, and they would always say, whatever education doesn't give you will give an exposure, right? So very early on, I was on planes. I had a passport. We traveled as a family everywhere, and got to understand this concept of exposure, that if you don't have it in the places that you're at, the world is so much bigger. The issues that beyond humanity, we all feel love, happiness, joy, all those kind of things. But understanding, empathy, those things are learned through different exposure, right? And that's something my parents fundamentally knew, even careers. So I grew up around Black communities. I often tease, like, the first time I really understood that the color of my skin could be used to quickly interpret my capabilities were in America.
What's so interesting about you is you have to have such a different view because you grew up in Nigeria, and so you looked like everybody else.
Yeah.
You didn't walk into a room like maybe somebody else who lives in Ohio and think, well, shit, I'm the only Black person here. Right? Like, here we go again. Here we go again, right? So that was and that had to be a confidence builder, and like you didn't feel that way.
Yeah, if there's anything like growing up in Nigeria, being a woman was more the hindrance, right? So I understood those dynamics. I went to all-girls school because my parents were very big on what a man can do, a woman can do. My dad's a biochemist, and so I was a STEM kid. I went to math camp. I didn't go to band camp, right? And I'd seen Black doctors. I've seen Black engineers. I've seen Black cops. I'd seen all these things. They weren't foreign to me. So when I immigrated to the U.S. at 18 for college, and I got to my engineering class, I chose mechanical engineering. I'm the quintessential immigrant. Like, there was just a short list of things that I could be. But I also liked STEM anyway, so it was a good career choice. And I was one of 3 females in my engineering class. And that was wild, right? Having come from an all-girls school, and I knew that girls did STEM. But then I was also the only Black girl. And the dynamics kind of intensified my first Black History Month in the country, in the sense that, again, when you see me and I'm Black, you assume I know Black history. I've learned about Martin Luther King, but it wasn't Nigerian history. It's American history. It's weird learning American history in Nigeria, like, you know. So I knew more about Nelson Mandela that was in South Africa because that's more relevant history to me, and apartheid, right? So I understood this dynamic of the color of your skin limiting you, right, with South Africa, but not slavery and the impacts that slavery has had on this country. So I had to learn that very quickly because it was an automatic assumption that I knew it. And why that automatic assumption was there, because Black History Month, someone asked me how I felt about Martin Luther King, and I was like, I was kind of like, and they looked at me like, I was like, well, I mean, he did something great for civil rights, but it's not someone I grew up knowing. And so that I didn't have those awkward moments anymore in America, I decided to take it upon myself to learn Black history, because Black history in America is American history. And so if I was going to be looked at, perceived, I wanted to understand what people believed.
Yeah. It's interesting because you don't carry some of this baggage.
I don't.
You know, and so it's a fresh perspective. And I just find that to be fascinating. And it's such a positive thing, too.
Yeah.
Because you grew up with confidence, and like you came over to America, you're like, hey, guess what? I'm going to be an engineer and then a lawyer, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to run for council, and I'm going to be your mayor, bitch.
Okay, I'm laughing because maybe I should have had that attitude, but maybe it was a little bit more subtle than that. But I love that. I'm gonna own that and start walking around like boom. But the point is taken and noted in the sense that it's true. Like I never thought it couldn't be just because it hasn't been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it in other situations.
I feel like anyone, regardless of your color or background, when they sit down with you, would be like a sponge and learn from you, not only because of your, coming over here when you were 18 and being able to sort of crush life here in a way that's very impressive, but do you feel like you get equal parts from people of color and white people who are curious about you, and it's a refreshing perspective for them? Does everyone, do you feel like you get that from everybody? Or
I think, and I've started to lean into it more as a superpower, and it's okay. I think there's an air of mystery about me. At first it used to be very frustrating, and I would want to people please and be likable, and more like, it shaped how I wanted to interact with people. But I've let the mystery be okay, because it leads to curious conversations, right? Rather than me trying to do everything to just make you feel comfortable with me being here, because I'm a mystery. It now allows for you to ask the questions. I'm more okay with just making you comfortable to ask the questions rather than making you like me, right? And so the mystery is still there. And I always welcome all the questions that come from it.
Well, that's amazing, and it's great because in this world today, it's not an open asking question environment.
Yeah.
Especially for like what do you want to call me? Like a white Ohio woman, whatever you call me, Becky or whatever. I mean, I'll take it. But it's truly not an open, it doesn't feel safe to ask questions. You feel either ignorant or you feel like you're overstepping. You feel like it's not someone's job because that's what you're told, and I get that. But I sometimes have questions.
Yeah.
Like I even wanted to ask you this, and I'm going to ask you this now. The way to address someone is saying black. Is that completely inappropriate at this point for a white person to call someone black?
Not for me. Yeah, no. Actually, would rather people say black than people of color, because it lumps a bigger group of people for someone's comfort. It's okay. We're a culturally diverse world, right? In Africa, there are white Africans, for goodness sake. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mostly black across the continent, right? But the same is here too, right? There's white, there's Black, there's Asian, there's Latina. We just have to be comfortable identifying people as they are.
Right.
What becomes interesting in my context, and that's why I prefer you just say Black, is sometimes people are like, well, are you African? I'm like, you can say that. I am African, but West Africa and East Africa and South Africa and North Africa are completely different. Northern Africa is more Islamic than, West Africa, even if in West Africa and the northern part of Nigeria, we do have Islamic Africans. So it's like African itself is so broad and diverse that I think the image people have of African, when they say African, is they're thinking about the kid on TV that's hungry. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and they're not thinking about the
right.
very nature of
Yeah.
an African. So just call me Black.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And I asked the question because
Thank you.
I know other people are thinking it, and it's like, well, I feel like if we get to a point in the world where we're literally frozen with fear, I feel like I would rather be the person that just says it. I just think when you get to that point, there's a real problem.
Yeah.
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 And speaking of Nigeria, as I was reading, the different languages and ethnic groups, I think there's 250 or something crazy.
That's correct.
That's wild.
That's why you speak English. And people just always, that's even the crazier thing. Like, you speak English?
But don't you speak something else?
I do speak something
What
else.
do you
I speak
speak?
Ibibio, which is so I'm from Akwa Ibom, which is on the southeastern coast of Nigeria. And I speak Ibibio. That's my ethnic language. But the whole country speaks English. We were colonized by the Brits. One of the few countries in West Africa colonized by the Brits. Most are colonized by the French. So almost all the bordering countries of Nigeria are colonized by the French. So we also learn French in some of the states that are along the border, like Akwa Ibom, where I was from, is along the border, and we border Cameroon. So we also learn French. But it's a very diverse country. So English is how we communicate with everyone, and Pidgin English, which is our colloquial type of English or market English. That is.
What's Pidgin English?
Oh,
Give me some.
Have you ever listened to Afrobeats at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly, it's like if I was going to tell you, you want to go now and say you dey go?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time. That's that market. Like if someone speaks Pidgin English to me, I'm instantly at home.
You're into it. And then tell me the name of the language again that you speak.
Ibibio.
Can you say something to me in that?
I'll say how are you.
Okay.
So Abadi, and you will tell me Idio.
Idio.
Yeah, which is not bad. If I said how are you, and you're like not bad, Idio. It's now that I've spent a larger part of my life in America than in Nigeria. There's always this, well, you're not really Nigerian, but then in America, there's like, well, you're not fully American, and I'm like, well, God damn it, who am I? I am equal parts Nigerian and equal parts American. Can we I'm Nigerian American. Is that okay? Can you call me that? Yeah. So it's so funny because now you're just so equal parts of these things.
Yeah.
And you have to represent both. Culturally relevant, right?
So I have 2 lanes right now that I want to go down.
Oh,
I'm trying to think which one I should go first. So I want to park for your kids before I go into the UA mayor situation. So you have 2 kids.
I do.
Okay, you have a boy and a girl.
I do.
Tell me a little about your kids.
Well, I have a 10-year-old daughter that's going on 21. So we're going to have to, work on some things. I don't know, why they know drunk elephant and why they know facial care routines and all these things. So I'm working through that. And then I have a 7-year-old son who I need to teach fear because he just climbs things without any real plans on how to get down. So we've been to the ER a few times in his short life.
Okay.
So that's just Zachary. So those are my 2 kids. We moved to UA 5 years ago. I went through a divorce and new leash on life and new job. I was in this pivotal change part of my life, and Aubrey was just about to start kindergarten, 5 years old, and top of mind at that point is schools.
Yeah.
And also homes, where I live, because no offense to New Albany, but just need some, I need some character.
Love New Albany, love Les Wexner, love everyone. I'm more of a old home
Yeah.
girl anyway, and kind of like renovate. So Arlington I was completely drawn to, but I can totally see why you were like, you know, where's the most kind of, I mean, if you want to call it flavor, I mean, I wouldn't say UA was packed with flavor. It's packed with banks. I can tell you that. We'll get to that, Mayor, because that's just why I really brought you here today. What the fuck's up with all the banks? All that
I'm
friggin'.
surprised by them as well.
Well, we'll get there. So
Yeah.
you land in Upper Arlington, which might I add is very white. Get mad at me out there, but it's whiter than a piece of Wonder Bread.
Yes.
So you land in UA and you decide, I'm going to make my home here.
Mm.
And then your daughter goes to kindergarten, comes home, wanting to straighten her hair, sort of assimilate. And you're like,
I'm like, hold the hot comb. Let me find out what's going on. You know, I didn't know very much about Upper Arlington when I moved. In fact, I was like, why do they have the Upper? Why isn't it just Arlington? I was like, oh, maybe they just don't want to be confused with Arlington in D.C. So I'm like, okay. But it was almost a very rushed process when I moved. School was starting. We literally got here like 4 days before school started. I had spent like a month kind of like looking, and the market was crazy at that time. I had some parameters. I needed to be within 10 miles of downtown, the schools. Again, we talked about the homes, mature trees. I had these things. And so, Grandview came up, Bexley came up, UA came up. There was some parts of Gahanna that came up. So all of these were all options. The home was just in UA. So there was no exactly I had to be in UA. And at that point, when the home was in UA, the realtor's eyebrows raised a little bit. And she's like, well, because I was in the Heights area in Cleveland, Shaker Heights, Cleveland Heights. I'd kind of done that whole area. So she's like, you'll get some of that vibe with UA, she said to me, but it does not look the same. It's very coded language, right? I'm like, okay. In my mind, I'm like, okay, let's just move in. Have you ever watched Coming to America?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's that scene where Eddie Murphy comes on. He's like, hello, my neighbors. Okay. So my first morning in UA felt like that. And then when I was walking Aubrey to school, Aubrey's my daughter, I was walking her to kindergarten. And it was one of those things I was like, okay, you feel, and I've been one of only a few in a room a long time since I came to America. I feel like I started to understand how those rooms felt, but I just hadn't really felt it in community, right? You feel it in workplaces, but I just hadn't really felt it in community. So that was an odd feeling, and really came full circle when she came home from school and said, Mom, can you straighten my hair for school tomorrow? And I said, why? We've straightened your hair like once in your entire whole life, right? And that was for her 5th birthday. So I'm like, what is happening? And it was the propellant to get me understanding. It was all curiosity. Get me understanding why she wants that, why it feels that way. And I quickly, and this was August, September, that she came home wanting to straighten hair from school. And there was half-day kindergarten in UA at that time. And our first February, so first Black History Month in UA, February 2019, I'm dropping her off at school. And there was no Black History Month happening. If it was happening, it wasn't on the walls. If it was happening, she didn't talk about what book they had read. If it was happening, there were no activities in the UA guide to go to. If it was happening, I wasn't seeing it. And it prompted me to my first question on the UA discussion forum. That simply said, what does our community do for Black History Month? That was the question. And I said, at that point, I'd only found one thing that a parent of color, like a PTO group, was doing at Wycliffe, and there were some library packed books at the time. Those were the only 2 things. And that post led to a lifetime of work. Literally, the path just started. I that's how I found out about Equal. I mean, I had people take me to coffee to talk more. And then it just opened up this world where that feeling had been there, and people truly wanted to do something about it, to change. And that's 2019. There was a community relations committee that was being formed. I started getting pulled into all these things, and I did them. And then very quickly after that, 2020 happens. And we all remember 2020. And it made me, that was the first time in this country where there was deep sadness for me, more so for my children. Because while I carry around my Nigerian nationality, my kids are American. My son is a Black boy in America. And as a mom, that hits very differently. And so I wanted to do everything to shape the world to be a little bit different for when they grow up. And that meant, that's when we say representation matters, it truly does. My daughter wasn't going to see her first Black teacher till middle school. At some points people say, well, we get the population we get. People buy here, and that's what ends up in the school. And I'm like, but that doesn't take away from how we recruit and hire, right? The people that my children see and staff in positions. It can't just be the janitor, right? That we can bring in through programming, the types of programming that people attend here in UA, the communities that we bring together. We could bring those things in. Those are things that we could impact. We could also impact our city purchasing, whether we use minority businesses as vendors. There's ways to expose our community to those things that don't have to be because we have those types of residents here, right?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And when you're impacted by something, so name it. Name it. It doesn't have to be a race thing. It could be someone you love is diagnosed with cancer, or someone gets killed tragically. Whatever happens in your life that creates proximity to that thing, you become a soldier marching for it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I love is like, you're like, wait a minute. Not only do I live in this community, I'm now going to take a role where I have some real impact on how we can really make a difference in the right ways.
Yeah.
Not just phoning it in like, well, here are the 4 Black History Month books at the Tremont Library. And, you can't just phone it in.
No.
Everyone should feel seen, heard, and understood, regardless of where you are.
Absolutely. And we like to talk in percentages. We're like, well, there's only 1.7% of the people in Arlington are Black. And I'm like, well, if we peel the percentage back, that is still 690 people.
Yeah.
Are you trying to say 690 people don't matter?
And go even further, 2 of them are my kids. So guess what? Them's fighting words. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you, because you don't want to get Mama Bear started like, oh, there's only, really? Those are my babies,
We can't be using these only language. So that's what propelled me, really.
And we're gonna keep down that path. But you said something that I want to address when you said, my son is a Black boy in America.
Yeah.
How do you fight that fear?
Yeah.
Of having a Black son in America, knowing what happens with the police and the injustice? Like, there has to be even more. I know how I tighten up dropping my blonde hair, blue-eyed boy to preschool.
Yeah.
How do you sort of educate him and temper your anxiety over that reality?
I completely, because at the end of the day, he's a 7-year-old boy. For me, I want nothing more than the freedom to be, enjoy, learn, be exposed. And if my son is charming as all get out. So
Shocker.
so he walks into a room and boy, he charms the room. And I want those things for him. I don't want him to feel inhibited in any way. So I just observe. I play a role of observing and removing roadblocks for him, so that he can be unapologetically whoever he wants to be. There'll be time for us to have more serious conversations when they come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping when they come up, we can talk about it in age-appropriate ways. But right now, I want him at every friend play date. I want them at my house. Because I also sometimes think the issue is, and I say it this way, you don't have different types of people at your dinner table, right? I grew up, like my dad was in corporate. I had white people at our dinner table. I didn't have a choice. That's just, you network in corporate, you do all that kind of stuff. There is a lot of white people walking around here that have never had a black person over to dinner. Like never. How is that possible? Those are really the issues where in the most intimate spaces, you don't even open it up to the human experience of sharing meals together with people that don't look like you. Your children learn more from that than anything that's happening in our classrooms, any Black History Month book that they can read. The curiosity of you in corporate bringing in those friends and having dinner with them in your house like you would with any other the friends that you have, and your kids seeing that and asking and getting those questions out of the way. That's what we want. That's the world we want to live in.
Can I stand up and just do like a standing O? Like seriously, you couldn't have said it better. And it's so true. And, people listening are probably thinking, well, that's me. I haven't done that. Like how can you get yourself out of this? There's nothing wrong with the bubble, right? There's nothing wrong. I mean, first of all, Upper Arlington is, a great place to raise children, and the home values are what they are because it's an amazing community. And I have met my share of incredible humans there, right? So there's no fault there.
Absolutely.
It's a great community. I absolutely love raising my family there. That being said, we have to sort of work a little harder to reach out and figure out how to show our kids diversity, being inclusive, because it is so easy to fall. I mean, your neighbors are all probably white, and they probably all have the same likes, and they probably listen to the same music. And so it's not that you're a bad person and you're busy and let's add this to the plate, right? Oh, let's find somebody to bring to dinner now. Like, let's add that to our to-do list, right? Here we go, Carrie. Okay, great idea. But if you really reach out and look,
it's not supposed to be that hard, though.
But no, it shouldn't be that hard. But I'm talking to these people who maybe are going, how am I going to do this? It really shouldn't be that hard. It's like, look around, get curious. Do you volunteer places? Do you go to fitness? Who do you see around you that you haven't sort of like reached out to?
Yeah.
Like, look at you and I. Yeah. We have had literal 3 conversations and we are going to be friends. Like, I already feel that. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
We'll be sharing coffee and whatever the hell else you want to share with me. I'll share a pie with you. I'll share a piece of cake, whatever you want.
I mean, this
let's do this, now. Right? So it's like, you're right. It shouldn't be that hard, but the reality is it feels a little foreign to some people.
It does. And I think it's how we do work and how we do life. Again, I'll say this. My dad was in corporate. He didn't have a choice. Those were his colleagues. He had to do lunch and dinners and all of that with them. How is it possible that the reverse is true for others? How can your corporate experience not, you see what I mean? That's when I say it's not that hard. I just think I don't have a choice. I can't have all Black friends. It doesn't work that way. How is it possible that another race can have all white friends? Like it's been foreign to me.
Yeah.
And so it's things like that where I just say, let's unpack that. We've created this monoculture that others don't get the privilege to enjoy. No, I don't know.
I think it's probably more fun with all being more diverse and inclusive is more fun. Like there's more stuff. Like
The conversations are richer.
But like what you and I talked about. So let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
Now seems like as good a time as any. So when we talked, and I was talking to you about diversity and inclusion. So when you hear diversity and inclusion, most people are like, oh, okay, we're talking about like including, someone who isn't white or whatever. When you really look at diversity and inclusion, it's kind of an unlock, right? It's an unlock to not only being homogenous and mundane and like in your same shit, but it's an unlock to life experience and understanding that you don't have. And to me, that is like quenching a thirst. That is like pouring water on a plant that's like, ugh. So diversity means opening yourself up to someone who's younger than you, instead of saying they're dumb, they don't know anything, they're only 25, saying, hey, how do they operate in the world? How can I learn from them and be a little more savvy? Because my old ass is stuck in my ways, right? Diversity could be that.
Yeah.
It could be so many things. Look deeper into what diversity means. I think if people got deeper with diversity and inclusion and really understood how flavorful life could be, we'd be in a better place, right?
Amen. Amen.
Amen to that. All right, so let's talk about the two things you've got going on with your big initiatives. So you've got diversity and inclusion, which we get, and then you've got the infrastructure development, which is near and dear to my heart, right? Because all the banks, we've got banks everywhere. We got no fashion. We're just now having restaurants, right? So talk through a couple of the things that you're doing.
Yeah. My big thing that I want to see more of is sidewalks. Sidewalks. We need sidewalks in UA. And for me, sidewalks connects people to each other, right? Especially when I think about our kids. If a kid from south of Lane could ride their bike safely to somewhere north of Lane, parents will let more of it. They'll connect with each other. They'll meet up at some of our places, which we don't quite have. The ice cream shops
Right.
for our younger population in UA to hang out in. I sat in on a session that Leadership UA does for our high school students and got to listen to our high school students on what they would do differently in the community. And one of the things they talked about was like places to hang out. It's funny because, you think about when you grew up and the places you hung out, you hope that you hung out in your community somewhere. And there's like no real place. They have parking lots behind Grader's Ice Cream that they tend to hang out at, but where else is the spots,
And that's what I don't understand. And like about the sidewalks,
Yeah.
Wellesley,
Yes.
where my friend Jackie and Adam live, and they've started their own petition because their kids are young, right? And the corridor, but it's super busy. So why don't we have sidewalks, and then sidewalks to the river, sidewalks to the Ohio Stadium?
Part of the neighborhood sidewalks, part of the issue is how we pay for them, right? Because everything always comes with some
Right.
kind of dollars attached to it. Right now, in like community sidewalks, those need petitions from everyone on the street to agree to it. And then it's kind of like a split fee sharing with the city paying some, the community paying some in order for us to have sidewalks. But with our thoroughfares, like I think about Lane, the one that takes us all the way down to Riverside, right? That just takes the initiative of council. And I mean, Lane Road was a long fought thing for sidewalks. People didn't want it. Those houses down Lane thought it would bring in the riffraffs. I like a little tongue-in-cheek thing that one of my colleagues said is like, well, do people ride their bike with a stolen TV on it?
Yeah, like what riffraff? I'm sorry. Please define riffraff.
So it's that othering attitudes of people just thinking, but that's exactly what we want. We want people that don't live in this community to enjoy this community.
Right.
If they're out at Riverside and think, oh, look up on their phone, where can I grab a quick bite? We want them to come to Toledo Honey because that's great food, right? Or we want them to grab a quick drink at Wine Bistro. And to do it, just take that walk or ride your bike. That's the kind of community we want. Or going to like Ohio State games. Like Upper Arlington's competitive advantage is our location. infrastructure makes it our location. Without a focus on our infrastructure and how infrastructure connects us to each other and to the communities around us, we're no different than any other community. If someone from New Albany is driving to an OSU game, paying $25 for parking, and we do the same thing in Upper Arlington, drive to a game and pay $25, what makes our communities different, right? What makes our location a competitive advantage?
Yeah.
So that, for me, that's what infrastructure really is about, is to just umfuff what is UA, what is the potential of UA, how we're able to bring people in to live, enjoy, and play here.
And I think people need to be okay with change.
Indeed. I often do this. I ask people, you want progress? Immediate answer is yes. Yes, yes. Everyone wants progress. When we ask, what are you willing to change to get progress? Deer in the headlights look, right? But the reality is you cannot have progress without change. And so the question we really need to be asking ourselves when we say we want progress is, what are we willing to change to get progress?
And what are we afraid of, really? It's fear of the unknown.
And we should all have a healthy dose of fear of the unknown. But you're never going to, that's what risk is. You're never going to understand if that risk was worth it without going along with it. Now, that's why we have researchers, we have varied views. That's why diversity and inclusion matters.
Right.
You get all the perspectives. I mean, I'm a lawyer. That's what we do, is we wager risks, right? We're always evaluating how great is this risk. Don't just change for the purpose of change. Be reasonable about it, right? But you can't say, no, we can't have this and get anything. You don't move by doing nothing. Like, that's the fundamental law of momentum.
Yeah.
You gotta, in order to move.
Yeah.
Nothing stays still.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bigger conversation too around fear of failure.
Yes.
You know, and we talked about this on the phone when on our, you know, when I was saying, you know, the more people make friends with fear and failure as opposed to seeing it as this thing. And I know there's a deep psychology with people. I get it. That feeling of fear and failure isn't a good one. So to really build the muscle where you're like, okay, I'm feeling this, but this is good, because the more I fail, the more I have a chance and an opportunity to do what I was meant. I mean, look at you. Look at what you've done.
Yeah.
The failure, you know, the fear of failure and the bravery, the courage that took
Yeah.
for you to step up. There was always a chance you wouldn't make it. You wouldn't get nominated.
Always a chance. And that's why I have a problem with success, and not necessarily celebrating success, but I think we look at success and think about people that are successful. And the reality is, success only comes because someone was willing to be okay with failure. On the other side of failure, right, is success. But you've got to first say, if this doesn't work out, if I'm not successful, am I okay? Am I going to be okay? Right? And that's that, like you said, that relationship with fear and with failure. You've got to say yes to that first before you can enjoy success.
And I just figured out our campaign motto.
What is it?
When you run for president. Because I like the mayor thing for you right now. I think it's great. We're getting experience. We're building our chops. But the ultimate vision, I believe, is the president of the United States.
Because you're going to be campaign manager.
It's going to be level up America. Literally level, and like for some people who get level the fuck up America, but for all the the things on TV where you have to be buttoned up, we level up America. Because I mean, I'm being dead serious. I really think there is something to you like continuing to run. I mean it, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but I wanted to say it out loud so that when you are president, we could go back and I could be like, I heard it here first. There's great potential here.
Thank you. Thank you for seeing that. I keep myself open to opportunities, but
That's a yes.
running.
That's a
No,
yes.
no, it's, I've got to see the impact that it has.
Yeah.
Because this has always been about changing lives for my children. But what I figured out from that process, even I was focused on these two beautiful human beings, is all the other beautiful human beings that this also helped. And that's a beautiful thing about change that I talk about. And people say, well, how can you be a change maker? It is focus on one thing or one person, and it will open up the world to all the people that are impacted by that.
Mm-hmm.
That's truly where you get fulfillment,
Yeah.
right? That's what purpose is.
Yep.
We're always searching for it, but you start with one thing.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And you have a book coming out, which is going to be my hook to get you back in here. It's called Immigrant.
Yes.
Okay. And then
I'm so excited.
Once that comes out,
I'm back.
we're going to give a couple free copies away.
Mm-hmm. More than a couple.
More than a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about it. And you and I will already be like
Yeah.
besties by then. Are you kidding me? Hey-o!
Let's go.
Hey, seriously, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and for you to come and sit with me and just, drop all this.
Fun.
It was amazing. It was it shouldn't, it should not be this fun.
You know what your gift is?
What?
Making people comfortable.
You
like
think?
your gift is just, you inspire like authenticity.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, because authenticity to me truly is if I had to take one thing away and run, it would be my authenticity.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you seeing that.
Yeah. No,
We really do see each other, right? Oh, hey.
This was fun.
New friends. New friends. Uh-huh.
Hey, you're going against Drake there.
Well, no, because
Oh, you starting a new? This is your.
Well, so Drake, his whole no new friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I almost agreed with him for a while until I met you. And now I'm like, no, we're gonna drop an album called New Friends, because this is what's happening right now. Hey. I'm telling you,
you like that riff? Yeah,
it's so good. I mean, this is too good. All of it.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank
you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you're still out there following your girl, follow me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you know what? If you like what you're hearing, share it with a friend who needs it. Spread the love. And with that, don't be afraid of fear. Fear is your friend. Keep moving. Do all the things, right? Keep living.
Have fun.
And have fun. And build sidewalks, UA, and quit building the banks.
Oh, too much. Yay. I'm so glad we did it,
my God.
friend.